This should be interesting. I am right in the middle of an argument, texting wise, with somebody. And I just thought it might be interesting to bring y'all along the ride as far as like how my brain works and how I see things and how I navigate conflict. Because people tell me on some regular occasion that I seem to be incredibly comfortable with conflict, willing to jump in there and just deal with stuff, which is true. And sometimes it's kind of hard to explain why that is. But so here's the deal. Like right now, we're at that point in this back and forth to where we're kind of trying to figure out who's at fault, right? Who's to blame? Like I did something that she didn't like, and then I didn't like her reaction to that, and so it's just kind of escalated to, well, you shouldn't have done this, well, you shouldn't have done that, and so we're kind of back and forth, drawing our lines, our boundaries, There's almost this sense of trying to figure out, just got sprinkled, trying to figure out like who's going to cave, but that's not constructive, right? I know that the goal is not to get someone to bow down and go, okay, it's all my fault, because part of what happens if somebody does that, if somebody drops down and just says, okay, I'm going to take the blame in this whole thing, is that even though they don't feel like they're wrong, they're doing that just to kind of bring peace about, that leads to resentment. And that actually makes the situation worse instead of better. Like you might have a temporary reprieve, but over time, if that continually happens, that creates problems. It goes back to that thing that I was about to say that women and men, I was going to say that men say it, but women say it, but it's really stupid. And that is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. There's truth in that, but the idea is that everyone ought to try and accommodate mom to where she's happy. Well, Mom, if that's the rule your family lives under, then you need to know that they are resenting you as time goes on, because most people don't have the skill set to truly let go of things and let bygones be bygones. Now, if they're skilled at doing that, then that's great, but I don't know a whole lot of kids and teenagers that know how to do that. And honestly, I don't know a lot of husbands that are really great at doing that either. So we're at that point in this argument of like, okay, who's right, who's wrong, that kind of thing. And so I can tell you where this is going to go, because she's a very intelligent, rational person, and we've had arguments before. We're both going to talk through kind of what's going on, and we're going to realize that we're each reacting not necessarily to the particulars of the situation, although that's what we're arguing about right now. We realize that we're reacting to patterns that we see in each other that bother us. So I recognize, I already see that, this was just a different flavor of the same ice cream. All right, so this came up. It's the type of thing that's happened before. It's something that actually drives me crazy, annoys me for, I feel like, a very valid reasons. And so part of the reaction she's getting is not based on this particular infraction, but is based upon kind of the ongoing thing that we can't seem to resolve as far as when she does that and how I react to that. From her perspective, the exact same thing. Like, this happened, I had a reaction, I had a response that was reminiscent of something that I do that she really doesn't like and how I handle things. And so she's reacting to not just this particular circumstance, but to all the circumstances that preceded that. So where we'll end up is that we'll end up talking through that kind of thing. And at some point, one to two of us will own our part. Not necessarily just let the whole thing go. In fact, it'll probably be me, where I'll go, you know what, you're right. When that happened, this is what I should have done. Here's why I did that. Here's what I was thinking. Here's what I was feeling. But at the same point, I get it. And, it wasn't cool for me to do that. And I know that really bothers you. And since I care about you, and you're an important person in my life, because I value you, whatever the situation may be for you, I will be aware of that and try not to kind of react that way, respond that way, do that particular thing, take that particular action. Now, I can't control whether or not she chooses to do likewise. I can only own my part of it. So I need to respond in a way that's not like a seesaw thing to where, if I move, you move, so that we say balance. But simply, I'm going to do what's right because I think it's the right thing to do in the circumstances, and that is to own my error, own my fallacy, own my behavior, whatever, this may be. In this particular case, I just got to own my part, but I can't, that does not require her to own her part. I hope it does. And because I, have confidence in her and know her, I believe that that'll be the case. But that's not necessarily, a guarantee with this. Now, these general principles apply not just, in, one type of relationship. They apply to your situation with your teens as well. They apply with work situations, relationships. It's just kind of across the board. This sense to where you're going to get sideways with people. You're going to react. They're going to react. But, if you dig underneath the levels, a lot of times you'll discover that what you're reacting to is not necessarily that particular situation, but that you're reacting to a pattern. Because for most of us, if somebody just does one thing that's, crosses a line, bothers us, offends us in some way, we can kind of let that go. It's when there becomes a pattern of that it really begins to bother us, and it becomes a big issue. And the problem is that, when it becomes a pattern, it's a big issue we haven't addressed, then we start overreacting to situations and people are like, what the heck? And it just gets out of control. And then you can't have a rational conversation about it because you're reacting in a way that seems irrational based on the current infraction, offense, or situation that's going on. So the best thing to do when you first sense that there's a little bit of a pattern developing in somebody's behavior is to say, hey, can we talk about this? Like, when you do this, because sometimes if you can get inside their head and understand like why they're doing what they're doing, it might make a little bit more sense and be a little bit less of an infraction for you. Or you may hear it all and go, no, that's not cool. And then you've got to see, is this a working dynamic? Do I need to change jobs? If this isn't going to change, it's a dating situation. Does this mean we need to change some things here? Something with your kids, like, do we need to change the dynamic, right? That can push you to dealing with the deeper issues that are going on. So, my guess is that probably a couple hours we'll have worked through all those kind of things, but that's typically how I've found healthy conflict happens, is that the conflict sets off an awareness that there's a problem in the way that and it's typically behavioral more than anything else, because people complain about attitude, but really attitude and behavior, you really can only address behavior, right? Parents talk about attitude, that's a whole nother conversation. But all right, so it's like, hey, these are behaviors, and you just have to kind of talk through it and figure that out, and then make decisions on, how important the situation, the person, the relationship, the employment, whatever that is to you, and figure out what you can do from there. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'll probably update you.